Thank you for being with us in muting, and I'm going to turn it over to Elizabeth Ouellette so we can jump right in. Thanks for being here and helping, Elizabeth.
Thank you, Laurel. You're so uplifting and positive. Thank you. I'm Elizabeth Ouellette, and I'm here with my friend Bethany Malash. And Bethany, as you know, is a motivational speaker. She's a world traveler. She is on the CMT advisory board, and she is also the author of How Should a Body Be? So if you don't have that book or you haven't read it, you can buy that on Amazon. It's really a great read. You can read it again and again, then pass it along to friends and then tell them about it. And so today we're going to be talking about tools for managing tough times. Bethany is in London and I'm in California, and I don't know where you guys are. So this is a global meeting, which is kind of exciting. So Bethany, with that being said, managing tough times, tools. Are we talking about like saws and hammers and nails, like tools for managing those tough times?
Hey, whatever works, Elizabeth. But no, as you said, I normally present sort of a very happy side to CMT because there have been a lot of happy sides to my life with CMT, right? I've managed to move to this amazing city here in London, right? I have a wonderful husband. I managed to get out of a wheelchair and do these long distance walks and do all this traveling. But there's also another side to CMT, which any of us who have it are intimately familiar with. It's really hard.
CMT right? is hard, Bethany. And I always wonder, you know, people with CMT are just amazingly resilient. And oftentimes, like for you, I don't see, or honestly, I'm going to be honest with you, you don't want people to see when you're down or, you know, because you want to be that positive person and you are. But the reality is that, especially in these last couple of years, we've had COVID and we've had isolation, and times are tough. Times are tough. And I wanted to know how you dealt with all that, you know, because you have been a little down and expressed some anxiety. So I want to know sort of like how have you been the last couple of years, and why are we talking about this now?
Yeah, well, I think for me, look, I was always told with CMT that my brain was the one thing that would be spared. You know, everything else, it was dicey, right? Like the hands might go, the feet might go. Oh, if you're unlucky, the breathing might go. But okay, I've got this one thing that's going to work for me and it's going to stay healthy and I can depend on that. And I really depended on that. So even though, you know, over the last 5 to 10 years, I started having symptoms of anxiety and depression, you know, issues of self-esteem, I really didn't want to acknowledge that even to myself, because the idea that my brain could be sick as well as, you know, all that I was dealing with CMT was just like, it was too much, you know, for me to acknowledge at that time. But with the last couple of years, which, as some of you know, weren't the greatest to me, I had a really traumatic knee injury on my couch, which meant I lost the ability to walk again. I managed to get 3 parasites while isolating from COVID, which, you know, who knew food delivery could be that dangerous? Anyway, all these things started coming up. And at that point, it was like, okay, that was the tipping point where I couldn't ignore these symptoms anymore, and had to actually focus on my mental health. And wow, I'm like so much better for it. Who knew that I could actually feel this much better? And so I want to share that with other people because I know I can't be the only one who's been in that place.
Well, let's start talking about anxiety. And just so that everyone knows, I do not have CMT. My son has CMT. I work with the CMT community, but I do have chronic foot pain. And it's gone on for 30 years. And there's some days it's very hard to walk. And I too have this bubbly external persona, but I too suffer from anxiety and sometimes from depression. And it's tough not being able to walk. So on some level I can relate. I can't relate to the whole CMT scenario. But I
don't invalidate your experience, Elizabeth.
Well, I don't want people to think that I know what it's like to have CMT. I can see it, but I'm not in your shoes. But talk about shoes. Yeah, I can only wear one pair of shoes. So I kind of get the shoe thing and the pain thing, right? Thank you, Bethany. Thank you for not letting me invalidate my own experience. But like anxiety, there's so many types of anxiety. Like, for example, there's phobias, and then there's general anxiety disorder. And then some people have OCD, you know, like everything has to be clean and everything. And there's panic and social anxiety. So like, what does anxiety look like? And like, for all those things I just mentioned, I think I have a little bit of all of those. So I don't know what you call that. But when I don't have control of something, that's a trigger for me. So my heart starts beating really fast. I feel sweaty. I can't talk. I start worrying obsessively. And then I think of scenarios that aren't even going to happen. And I know that, but I'm like, oh, if I say this, then that's going to happen. And this is going to happen. And this is going to happen. And then everybody's going to die. You know, like those kind of thoughts over and over and over and over and over again. So it can last days. And so, Bethany, is your anxiety like that?
No, mine is completely different.
What? It's not like my anxiety?
No. Yeah, so I feel like there's some anxiety just inherent to CMT, which is like, oh no, I have to cross the street and I might fall, right? Like that can cause anxious thoughts, that can cause a fear response. And, you know, even leaving the house, or, you know, oh, I have to go to this party. What if they have stairs, right? And there's no railing and I can't get in the house. So there's that level of anxiety that I've always had to deal with CMT. But for me, I thought of anxiety the way you described it, which is worry, right? And usually if you say, oh, I'm anxious, people are like, oh, what are you worrying about? And I wasn't worrying about anything. My body was just in a constant state of stress.
Like fight and flight kind of stuff?
Fight or flight. Like if you imagine the little fawn in the woods and the fawn has been through some stuff, right? Like a hunter shot at it a couple times, and, you know, then there was like some animal trying to eat it. And so now any rustle in the leaves just terrifies that little fawn and it freezes. And so that was starting to happen to me as I was finding any little stressor in my life, an email to respond to, right? Or dishes on the sink were unreasonably stressful, right? Where my body just felt like hyperstimulated and in danger. And it's taken a few years of sort of working out where that started. And I think I have a pretty good idea now, which is with CMT, the outside world is unsafe, right? I mean, let's be honest, for anyone, the outside world is unsafe, right? Danger can always be around the corner. But I think with CMT, we're a little bit more aware of this fact. But I always felt safe within my body, right? I felt safe just within my body, on my couch, at home, until I started having breathing issues with my CMT. And there were a couple times when I got really deeply sick with CMT-related breathing issues. And I think at that point, something in me was like, okay, I'm not safe outside of my body, and I'm also not safe inside of my body. And that ultimately led to this sort of chronic anxiety state.
Wow. You know, how did you treat that? How did you, we're going to switch this around. I was going to talk to you a little bit about how I treat my anxiety, but let's just go on with yours and then I'll tell you after. How did you treat your anxiety? I mean, how did you come to terms with all that?
First, I ignored it.
Yeah.
Then I quit my job.
Okay.
Because I thought maybe I'm doing too much, right? Then I ignored it some more.
But that's tough, giving up something you love and that you're so good at, and being a spokesperson and everything. To give that up, that's a tough choice.
It was a very tough choice. So for the normal, like crossing the street type anxiety, I've gotten pretty good at talking myself through it, right? And, okay, these anxiety responses are actually built into our bodies to help us, right?
Right.
They're built into our bodies to alert us to danger. But, so when we feel them, we assume we are in danger, even if we really aren't. So if I'm at a curb and I'm about to step off and I'm like, oh gosh, I could go down in the middle of that street and I'm not gonna be able to get back up, and like, what are the people thinking? I tell myself, okay, thank you for your response. I understand you are looking out for me right now, right? But I got this one.
So you self-talk and
Self-talk.
You're compassionate.
Have to be compassionate and talk myself across the street. And I do find that if I can talk myself through it over and over again, that ultimately that fear response does dampen down, because you realize it's not as big of a threat as you thought it once was. But in terms of chronic anxiety, right, that's really more of an anxiety disorder. I've had to learn over the last couple of years to really cultivate an awareness around what is contributing to anxiety. And it's not always immediately obvious. For example, I cut out coffee for a different reason. And then I decided to start having coffee again, and I realized that really triggers anxiety for me. And by the way, that's the case for a lot of people, is that it just sort of increases that threshold. And now even, if I have anything that I need to get done that day, right, that is remotely stressful, I won't even have a cup of tea, because I notice that it makes that much of a difference for me. I also realized that I am just hyper stimulated all the time, right? I know I'm spent almost all my day on the computer and I'm just clicking. I'm clicking. And, I've gotten into that like dopamine trap of if something isn't immediately entertaining me, I am clicking off, I'm clicking onto the next video. I've got 40 tabs open. I'm clicking between them. It looks psychotic, honestly. Like if you step back, no, really, it's bad. But, our brains have gotten used to this hyperstimulation. And for me, I realized that it's harmful, right? It keeps me in this elevated anxiety state. So I've done a few things. I've gotten rid of a bunch of the apps on my phone. I have now a browser extension on Chrome that limits the amount of tabs I can have open. So I've set the amount to 6. And if I open another tab, it goes, bad girl, and closes it. And it's been really effective, right? Because I can't trust myself to manage these things myself. But thankfully, technology has made it easier for us.
Right.
And I also have made my home life much tidier, right? I really try to keep my place picked up, because I realized that physical clutter really adds to the mental stress. And we also decided, and I realize this is a privilege, but we decided to invest in a cleaner to come every other week, because it just makes that much of a difference, honestly, for both my husband and I, our mental health.
Well, That's so those, first of all, when you said cut out caffeine, I'm like, because, with CMT, a lot of people feel really tired too. So you look for that stimulant so that's a hard choice, for me, it would be. Was it hard?
Yeah, but at this point now the reward is so clear. By the way, I still do have coffee sometimes.
Yeah, once in a while, right?
Right, but then I do suffer for it. Or I get decaf, which is much better. But ultimately, I did a bunch of these things. I spend less time online. I try to read physical books. I try to spend a little bit of time in the sun. And these things helped, but not enough, right? And it really just, I apologize if anyone has emailed me in the last 2 years, because my response time is rough, right? It's literally responding to emails and doing these simple things had gotten so challenging. And, one thing I had never wanted to consider was medication. And I know this is something you and I have, talked about in our friendship, and you've given me a hard time about, is I do tend
just
to
take Zoloft, just get some Prozac. Bethany, come on.
But again, I didn't ever want to acknowledge or admit that I could need that level of help. Until honestly, I got to the point where I just realized that I deserve better. Yeah, I realized that I deserve better. And so I did actually get on Zoloft, a very low dose. And oh my goodness, it is incredible, the turnaround from just a really low dose of an SSRI and how much easier it is to get things done, right? And I still have a base level of fatigue, just from CMT and all of those factors, but there's not that intense emotional hurdle, right? To do little tasks.
Right. Good for you. I can totally relate on the Zoloft thing, because I take Zoloft too, and it just helps me. I figured that taking an SSRI, it might be lifelong, it might not be lifelong, but you can't learn, at least I can't learn coping skills while I'm anxious up here. And
yes.
Coping skills will learn when I'm not so anxious to be able to tolerate that anxiety. And then maybe I can go down at some point with my new coping skills, right?
No, that's exactly it. It's like, okay, I realize, yes, I could go for a walk every day. I could meditate for 30 minutes. I could cook healthy meals, right? But without the medication, I'm not going to do those things, right? And yeah, now I feel like I actually have the capacity to fix some of those other lifestyle factors.
And it's not for everyone, it's not for everyone, but it's okay to try it. It's it's become kind of a stigma in our society. Have you ever tried like meditation or anything?
I hate meditation.
Yeah. So now that's what I used to say. I used to say, oh my God, if I have to sit there for a minute and not do anything, I'd rather stick needles in my eye. Like, seriously, I don't want to meditate. I can't stay. But, I've been working with this coach, and his name is Arda Ozdemir. And he's really helped me a lot. He has this power method, and his site is Rise to Realize. And I'm just mentioning him because I've really learned that for me and my anxiety, when something comes up, I get triggered, right? And triggers like I planted those flowers in the garden, just for example, and I had already thought of how I wanted them. And I'm like, right away, fight and flight. I'm like in that mode, like, what do you mean you planted the garden? Or like, I'm not in control of a situation. I'm expending so much energy with reacting and being anxious. So what I've learned through him, I've learned a lot through him. But the first thing is to calm myself a little bit. And before I react, I've learned to pause. And pausing helps me think. And Bethany, you're very good at pausing. Like I'll ask you a question. When I first met you, I'd ask you a question. And I'm like, oh my God, is it going to take 5 minutes for you to respond? Like, oh, but I really respect that. You speak after thinking. And I just think while I'm speaking. I don't know what I do. I just go, blah, without even thinking. So this has really helped me to pause and observe the feelings in my body. Like, where am I feeling it? And why am I feeling it? And another thing that I've learned, I've always tried to avoid negative emotion. Like, just avoid sadness. Like, one of the methods is to bring these emotions into your body and discharge them through the earth, right? I'm like, no way, don't bring all that sadness, all that past sadness in me. I don't want that. But I think to actually come to terms with things and learn to deal with who doesn't want to feel happy? Like, I love feeling happy. I only want to feel happy, but life is full of different emotions and challenges. So to pause, observe, and welcome those feelings and try to figure them out. So I'm not, going around all the time with all these thoughts. And I try to stay in the moment, pause, observe, welcome, and then discharge. So it's really helped me. And the last thing it's sort of a tool for anxiety. And I'd like everybody to try this just for 1 minute. Okay. So it's called self-meditation observation. And it's just a way to pause. It's to help you focus on one thing without having sometimes I think we're all controlled by our thoughts. Our thoughts just control us. Thoughts. And sometimes it's good to clear the mind. So what I'd like you to do is, if you can, put your thumbs together. Now, I don't know if everybody has feeling in their thumbs. If you don't, then put your wrists together, or put your fingers together, right? So maybe just one point would be better. So put your thumbs together, and if you can just put them in your lap and relax and close your eyes. And this is just 1 minute, okay? And this is what I do. Try to do this twice a day for at least 5 minutes. You can just breathe in and breathe out. You don't need to take really deep breaths. Just breathe in and breathe out. Now just take your attention and focus on that point on your thumbs. Think only about the pressure, the meaty tips of your thumbs, or wherever you're having the pressure point. If you can just focus on that and keep breathing. Now thoughts will come in, but welcome those thoughts and have them float away. And now where's your attention? Is it on your thumbs? Or is it with those thoughts about what you have to do later on today? Accept the thoughts and just watch them like a third person going by, as if you were watching a movie. And try to focus on your thumbs. Breathe and keep breathing. Now, where are your thoughts? Are they on your thumb? Or they are thinking about what you're going to do after this podcast? If it's somewhere else, that's okay. That's the nature of things. Come back to your thumbs. Focus on that pressure and relax. Take a deep breath in and release it. I'd like you to open your eyes and come back. How did that feel?
I felt really nice, Ashley. It's interesting. And I notice other people with CMT do this as sort of a separating of us and our bodies, right? And I remember you pointed out to me once that I don't say my feet, I say the feet. the feet are having a bad day.
I'm like, what are you talking about? The feet, you know?
Right. And I don't know if it's like a protective mechanism or something, but yeah, there's something really nice about coming back into my body.
And
right?
feeling it and getting
And
rid of those.
feeling
And
it.
everybody's, the practice is to help you not have all that chatter and that
Mhm.
buzzing. And there's a really good app called Insight Timer. And
Mhm.
Arda does a really great, you think meditation, and I see this as meditation, a 10-minute self-observation meditation. And it feels like 2 minutes to me. I mean, it feels like no
Mhm.
time whatsoever. And I was probably just trying to go a little bit fast on that and probably wasn't as relaxed because I know we have a lot to get to. But I really, an Insight Timer, and we can give the link afterwards, Laurel. It's a free app and there's so much there. There's music and there's stories and there's relaxation. But I just find this one practice, if you do anything, even for 5 minutes, it's a really soothing and really healthy exercise to get your thoughts just focused. And so you're not in that stimulation all the time, right?
I'm going to try it. I'm going to give it a
Okay.
try.
All right. So, there are other ways to treat anxiety, like cognitive behavioral therapy,
Mhm.
which is thinking patterns. And, there's chair yoga. Also, there's people that like to be more active, or chair Tai Chi, or rather Qigong. So there's a lot of other ways to deal with anxiety. Do you have any others, Bethany, right now? Or I have a whole list, but, we can put that in the notes.
Mhm.
Do you have anything else to add for the anxiety piece?
I mean, I'd say that I've also just really learned to minimize responsibilities, right? My thing is, if it's not an absolute yes, it's an absolute no. It's really easy to overcommit myself. And I have limited energy, right? Many of us do. And I've had to get a lot better at saying no to things, even things that sound exciting, right? No, that's going to be too much for me. And that's a work in progress.
It's hard to say no.
It is.
Like you want to go, but not really. And I'm like, oh, do I have to go? And I'm really bad at saying no. You know what Johan has taught me is, hey, you want to do this on this date? Let me think about it. Let me think about it. And that gives you time to think of all the excuses of why you can't go. Instead of saying yes.
Yes, not making an immediate commitment.
Right, right. So I have one question though. There are a lot of people here today with us. They have to work. They have to work. They have to go to work every single day. What would you say to those people?
In terms of minimizing responsibilities?
Anxiety and responsibilities, right.
I'd still look at where you can cut back, right? Even, if you're making a meal every day, can you do meal prep once a week, right? So that you're spending less time on your feet and in the kitchen. What else are you booking your time with, right? Is there a way that you can get 1 extra hour of sleep, right? Even if it means minimizing your computer time. Yeah.
Okay. I'm sure there are other ways, and maybe people, if they want to write in the chat, that would be great. How they minimize responsibilities and stress and external obligations, right? So I want to jump into depression. I don't want to jump into depression. I want to jump out of depression, but let's talk about depression. For me, depression, and honestly, a couple of my friends have died in the recent couple of weeks, and I found myself really affected by it. And like, for me, I'm like, oh, I have anxiety. But there's a little bit of depression in back of that. And for me, it's lethargy. And like, I don't want to get out of bed. I just want to stay in bed with my cat, and a lot of negative thinking. And I sleep a lot when I have some people don't sleep. I sleep too much, right? So, Bethany, you said that you had depression. What does it look like for you? I mean, so I'm just realizing anxiety can look so different. How about depression?
Yeah, it's very hard for me to tease apart depression and fatigue.
Oh,
Because like you know, I've been in stages where it's just hard to get out of bed, right? I don't want to get out of bed. I don't want to do anything. I don't want to go out with friends. But is that because I'm depressed, or is that because I'm tired? Is that a normal CMT thing, right? CMT can impact sleep, right? We see a higher incidence of sleep apnea and hypoventilation in people with CMT. I know I don't sleep well. So that's been a challenge. I think for me, it's not just fatigue and lethargy. It's also a lack of joy and enjoyment in things that normally would bring you joy and fulfillment.
so that's your sign.
That's my sign. But I do, you know, whenever I'm feeling particularly fatigued or lethargic, I try to check off like obvious causes and easy to fix causes. So for example, I'm always aware of some nutrient deficiencies because I studied nutrition in college. Vitamin D is a big one.
Yep.
Vitamin D deficiency is incredibly common, and it will cause fatigue and depression, and also weak bones, which is not great for CMT. And it's not actually that easy to get adequate vitamin D through food alone, unless you're eating pounds of salmon, which you probably don't want to be eating pounds of salmon. And most of us don't get enough sun exposure, you know, depending on where we live and the time of the year. So I would really recommend just talking to your doctor and getting your levels tested if you're suffering with a lot of fatigue. That has been huge for me and my husband. Both of us were very deficient. And then another nutrient, especially for any vegetarians, is iron levels will cause extreme fatigue if that's deficient. And if you are worried about your iron and you talk to your doctor about it, I would also ask them to check your ferritin levels, which is the storage form of iron. Because even if your iron levels are fine, if the storage iron is low, you could still be symptomatic. But then beyond that, right, you've checked off the easy things. I try to cultivate joy wherever I can. I say an otter live stream helped get me through the pandemic.
So she was watching otters and she knew all their names and the babies and when they were sleeping.
I did. We had our otter live stream on our big TV here, and I'd wake up and Josh would already have it on for me. So I'd see the otters would still be sleeping because they live in Canada. And, you know, then like I'd have lunch with the otters every day. And when it was one of the otters' birthdays, they'd make it like an ice cake with little fish in it. So I try to give myself joy and things to look forward to. I have noticed, again, just, you know, cultivating awareness into what affects our mental health. I have noticed that if I'm walking and exercising regularly, I tend to feel better in my mind. I've noticed that if I'm spending less time on the computer, I tend to feel better. I've noticed that in the winter, when it is dark and cloudy and there is no sunshine, I tend to feel worse. So I got one of those sad lamps.
Right? So wait a minute. I keep looking at these notes. I'm like, why would I buy a sad lamp if I'm already sad?
It's horrible marketing, right? I want a happy lamp. No, but it's sad for seasonal affective disorder. Oh. Yeah. Which is that a lot of people, they feel sadder during the winter because the lack of sunshine really affects us. So I actually got a special lamp which I really enjoy in the winter. But again, especially during the pandemic when I had these injuries, I had these illnesses, I was isolated, I wasn't leaving the house, so I wasn't exercising. Even the otters at some point just weren't doing it, and I basically lost my sensitivity to joy. Like I could feel pleased in things, but never joy, right? It was just very, very flat. But I don't.
What I'd like, Bethany, were you about to say something?
No, go ahead.
During the podcast, I was pretty encouraged by, you have a lot of plans. You want to visit a whole bunch of countries and you have a list of things to do, right? And because of that knee injury and some of the other things that are going on, your walking's been affected in balance, and you're using a wheelchair sometimes, and I'm not sure where you are with that. But I was really impressed by your ability to be flexible and change the things that you wanted to try and do that made you happy. Could you talk about that a little bit? Like the new things that you were going to try that were actually exciting. Like some people go, oh, I'm going to go to Mount Everest, and yeah, that's great. I'm going to visit 100,000 countries like next year, but now you're not going to be able to do that. So what are you doing instead?
Yeah, I did. I had a goal to visit 30 countries by the time I turned 30, and then travel shut down. And I was also working on doing a bunch of long distance walks, which that got shut down. I have learned to still set goals for things, but make sure that I set some goals that can't be taken away, especially by CMT progression. So this year I've just set a goal to do 30 new things, 30 new experiences. I've tried a bunch of new foods. We just had Korean food for the first time the other day, right? We're learning how to bake new dishes. It's been really fun. And that's something that can't ever be taken from me. I do think you're right. I think because people with CMT tend to be incredibly adaptable because we have to be. The thing with CMT is it's not like you ever just like figure it out and get used to it. It's constantly changing on you, right? And I think that's something that's so challenging about it is as soon as I've gotten used to it, then my hands get weaker, right? Or suddenly I have a breathing challenge, right? Or I injure a ligament. And so we do have to be very adaptable because that's just the nature of it.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you. Those are all so exercise, healthy eating, reducing stress, having goals that you can do despite your CMT, be with people. And that the last thing sometimes you want to do when you're feeling depressed is even go outside. But you really got to force yourself to do these things, because then after, just remember that you'll probably feel better. And it doesn't have to be like a 10-mile walk, and you can be just going out into your garden and looking at a flower and just being with that flower. I mean, it sounds kind of silly, but it's wonderful, the things you can notice around you that you usually don't notice.
Yeah. The thing is, when I was in that depressed state, I really didn't think there was any other option, right? I thought, okay, my circumstances are just inherently bad. There's nothing happy here. There's nothing to be happy about, right? Of course I couldn't feel happy. And, we talked about earlier getting on the low dose of Zoloft for anxiety. I did not start that medication for depression because I didn't think I was depressed. I thought my life just sucked, right? Which is what, depression tells you is, oh, of course I can't be happy because of this, and this. And SSRIs like Zoloft, they take several weeks for the serotonin to build up in your brain. And so I'd been taking the pills, but I'd sort of like forgotten, you know, I wasn't expecting changes 2 months in. I had noticed the anxiety had gotten a lot better already. And suddenly I woke up one day and I felt joyful. I felt gratitude for the first time in a long time. And my circumstances were not any better than they had been 6 months before. If anything, a couple things had actually gotten worse in my life. But I was actually able to see all the things that were still good. And so I'm really grateful that I finally gave the medication a chance, because I didn't even realize that feeling, you know, good was an option in spite of those obstacles.
Wow, that's amazing. All right. There's a couple of misconceptions that I'd like to go through. And I want to know, so have you heard this and how do you answer these people? Or do you just, you get more depressed? Bethany, come on, shouldn't you be used to it by now?
No, because like I said, CMT is constantly changing, right? And there's different challenges in different phases of life, right? You know, when I was a teenager, it was being worried about wearing shorts with leg braces, right? And, you know, what are people going to think? And, you know, then it was, how am I going to walk down the aisle at my wedding, right? And now it's, oh, how would I handle pregnancy? And like, how would I take care of a child, right? You know, there's different challenges throughout the lifespan. And we're also dealing with something that is progressive, right? And it's up and down. So no, I don't think we ever get used to it, but we do learn tools throughout our lifespan that hopefully make us better at adapting.
How about this one? This one gets me every time. You have such a great life. You have everything you could ever ask for. Why are you so sad?
Well, because I'm not medicated. That helps. I mean, it's a stupid comment. It's not helpful.
Thank you.
You know? Yeah.
Yeah. Has anybody told you were probably looking for attention or you don't look depressed?
I have been told I don't look depressed. And I think this can be why it's hard to share things with people, is often they sort of unintentionally invalidate what you're saying. And I was opening up with someone close to me when I was going through that depression. And I was like, yeah, like I don't feel joy anymore. Right. And that was a scary thing to say. And then she like cracked a joke or something and I laughed. Right. And I smiled, you know, and she's like, haha, gotcha. Right. Like, like she caught me out, like, you know, in my lie. And I was like, okay, like just because I'm still social and can laugh doesn't invalidate what I'm saying to you. But yeah, people don't understand. And you got to accept that people don't understand your internal life.
Thank you, Bethany. This has been wonderful. I think we should probably stop now unless you have last minute advice to give and take some questions.
Sure, we can take a break.
Okay. Laurel, are there any questions that have popped up?
Nothing's come into chat.
Oh,
I would just like to say that, Elizabeth, I love your meditation voice, and we should just continue that throughout. It's beautiful. I was so relaxed, and I'm the person who would be thinking about the 80 million other things, but I was actually thinking about keeping my thumbs together, maybe because it's hard. I don't know. So, okay, guys, let's do this somewhat systematically, but if you have a question for Bethany or for Elizabeth, if you could raise your hand or put your hand reaction up, or you're welcome to put it into the chat. but this has been so wonderful to hear. I appreciate you all sharing so openly and honestly. I think it validates, as a person living with CMT1A, it makes, it validates some of our experiences. And also tools, I think it's so important to talk about that. I experienced greater fatigue in the past year than I have ever experienced. And it's helpful to hear what that looks like for other people and some coping mechanisms and tools. So thank you for sharing. So any hands up? Anyone want to unmute or share? Let's see, we've got something coming into the chat. Stand by. Oh, okay. Pam shared that there's a book called The 4 Agreements that gives tools.
There's another book that I'd like to mention. It's David Burns, and he has a handbook and a workbook, and it's called Feeling Good, the New Mood Therapy. And it's focused on depression, but you can take depression and you can put anxiety or chronic pain and all the tools. It's the best book. I mean, it's my Bible for mental health.
And what's it called again, Elizabeth?
It's by David Burns, and it's called Feeling Good, the New Mood Therapy. Oh, and you can buy it on Amazon, and he's been around for a while, and it's an amazing book, and you can just follow through, and it gives you tools and ways to think about things. There's a couple apps also. Insight Timer, I've mentioned. There's also a website, and I believe it's an app too. It's called Happify. And Happify, it's free. These are free apps or websites. And if you choose, they'll give you something in your inbox, and it talks about different tools, therapies, ways to find joy. It's really a very, very good website and app, and I really like it. And the other one is Calm, if you want to meditate. Calm.
I was going to mention that. Someone's mentioned that before on a meeting. So a couple things that have come up in chat. S. Willette, I'm sorry, I'm not getting your first name, says, and if you want to unmute yourself and share, but she said, I don't look like I have anything going on. How do others deal with that guilt? That's an interesting.
I'd be curious for you to elaborate on guilt. What kind of guilt you're experiencing?
I like I said, my braces are hidden under my pants. I don't use a cane or anything like that. My hands are highly, they don't look a whole lot like CMT. I try to keep up with everybody else because I don't look like anything's going on. And when I try to limit myself, I feel like I have to explain myself, or I just feel like I get feeling guilty, like I should be keeping up with others, and I can't. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. But I would say, just because like your hands maybe don't look as like obviously affected as mine, or, whatever, doesn't mean that you don't deserve the same understanding and accommodations, right? Even if it's not immediately obvious and visible. And while I don't think you need to feel like you have to over-explain or excuse yourself, I think it is helpful to just calmly state, hey, this is a limit for me, I've got bad hands, right? I can only type for so long. And generally, I find people will just take that at face value. Yeah. So I don't know if that's helpful.
Yeah.
So the other thing I want to say, and again, a lot of people don't feel comfortable talking about their CMT, but I'd really encourage you to talk about it. Because if you talk about it, then other people will understand a little bit better. And you don't have to go into all the, ins and outs, but I have this thing called CMT and I'm a little slower. So that's just the way it is. And I know it's hard to accept the CMT, but honestly, at the end of the day, you have it and it's not going anywhere. And it creates a lot of emotional anguish to keep it inside and not share it with people. And I find that after being involved with this community for the past 20 years, if you can share it, people will still love you and you will still have friends and will support you. And if they don't, then, oh, well, they probably weren't the best friend anyway. That's just my the way I look at things.
Thank you.
Yeah, I see a couple comments I want to respond to. Diane just posted, I recently got some test results that pointed out all the damage in my legs. I've obviously been living with it for a while, but seeing the results really affected my mental health. Okay, I have to share just a quick story about this because you're bringing up a traumatic memory for me that's very relevant. A lot of us go to the neurologist once a year, right? And we do the standard review and they poke us with the pins down our arms and our legs and they do the strength testing. And then they do the really painful, in my experience, electrical testing of the nerve conduction, right? And I had always turned down the nerve conductions because I knew they weren't going to affect my treatment. They were just going to help the doctor's research. But at some point I was working for the CMTA and I was like, okay, I gotta be a good role model. I gotta help the research. And so that year I agreed to do them and they were horrible. And so then the next year I'm like emotionally prepared to do it again because I know they like to track the progression of nerve damage. And it was the end of my appointment with my neurologist and she said, okay, like we're all done. And she had forgotten to do the really painful ones. So I stupidly reminded her, Diane. I said, hey, what about the painful ones? And she said, oh no, your nerves were all dead last time. So there's no point in doing those again. And that was such a gut punch. Because yeah, like you, I'd clearly been living with these nerves in these legs for a while, but like hearing that they were dead was really upsetting. And it took me several weeks to sort of process that. But what's ironic is a few months before she told me all my nerves were dead, I had done a 50-mile fundraising walk for the CMTA over 5 days. So I would say that test results aren't the full story. Okay, and that's something that we have to remember is, look, some of our nerves might be dead. They might be a little slow. They might be a little behind. But we still have a lot of other nerves and a lot of other muscles working for us. And those are what we have to give our attention and our love to.
That's a great reminder, Bethany. I'm going to go to Colleen because she's had her hand up so patiently. Colleen, if you want to unmute and share.
Laurel.
Hi.
Hi. Hey, I just wanted to very briefly share, and Bethany and Elizabeth and Laurel, thanks for this. This is wonderful. I have been a public health nurse during the pandemic, and I just wanted to share with this community kind of along the lines of what you're talking about. I was working with disabled people in my community, and you may already know this, but there's statistics also proving that we are more vulnerable during this pandemic time. There's statistics showing the incredible impact of the things, the resources lost, the connections lost, and physical decline and struggles with anxiety and depression, especially in people with levels of disability. And working in the community that I worked in, I mean, this is one of the things I'm recovering from. I saw mass devastation that just broke my heart. And I don't say this to be dark. I mean, I say this in a hopeful light, but and in the spirit of affirmation, that if anyone is feeling guilty or I'm weaker than my neighbor was fine, if you inherently have a disease, this has been, I hate to say it, it's been really hard. And it was really hard for me personally. Seeing that in the community I worked in, it was also happening to me at the same time. And it was really scary. And I'm on disability at this time, which has been a good life change. But anyway, I just wanted to share in case it would be helpful, because I was feeling until I started getting these statistics pouring in my work about the impact on these vulnerable populations and maybe amidst that population. But there's been a lot of this that we can do a lot of things to help ourselves, but it's been really hard. And there should be no guilt or shame in that. That was what I wanted to share.
Thank you, Colleen.
Thank you.
So, just looking through the comments, a lot of them are just sharing information and experiences. Diane says, I also have CIDP and it took 3 neurologists to get a diagnosis. If your medical provider suggests a mental health issue rather than addressing what you know as a physical disability, find another medical provider. I think that's so important. If your doctor's not willing to help you down a diagnostic path, whether it's neurological, whether it's mental health, or an orthotist with good bracing, then you're probably not in front of the right person. And if you're able to find a better healthcare partner who will listen to you, advocate for yourself, that's great guidance. I second that, if your insurance will allow you to do that. And then of course the topic of CBD and gummies and stuff have come up in the chat room regarding anxiety. And I think that people have had experience with those that help their anxiety also. Good. Okay. Any other thoughts before we wrap up? Thank you for sharing that story, Bethany. The last time I had a nerve conduction test.
Robert, not bad.
Oh, hi, Robert.
Sign me up. But the problem I have is I was diagnosed back in 2010 with CMT, but I probably had it years ago, but never done anything about it. But I went to a neurologist in 2008 and he said I had Parkinson's. I said, okay. So, I said I wanted to get a second opinion. So I went to another neurologist and she did electrodes on my legs and everything. And she comes out, she goes, Robert, you don't have Parkinson's. You got CMT. Look at her. What's CMT? I never heard of it, And she says it's a neuropathy in your legs and your feet and your hands. I said, wow, that's why I'm dropping stuff all the time, and I'm falling all the time, losing balance. And for years, she was giving me Botox because my toes, how CMT, some patients, their toes curl down. Mine was the opposite. Mine were curling up. And my big toe, if I took my shoes off, my big toes would stick practically straight back. And when I had my shoes on, I was being in so much pain all the time because my toes wanted to be up. Yeah. But she was giving me Botox in my legs to relax, the muscles in that. And they would go down and they would stay down for a while. But then after a while, it didn't work anymore. I said, what do we do now? And she says, you know what? We're going to have surgery on your feet. I said, what kind of surgery? She goes, I'm going to want you to have surgery on your feet. The surgeon's going to cut your tendons, going to the toes. And he did. And it worked. My toes don't go up or down. And the surgeon fused my 2 big toes where they don't move up and down at all. But it worked for me. But I still lose my balance. And what's depressing for me is I like to stay active. you know, and I can't do things like I used to do. And my driving, I can't drive anymore, you know, because if I drive more than maybe 15 minutes, my right leg would start cramping up on me and I can't drive anymore. So my wife does all the driving now. And that's really depressing for me because I can't do what I used to do, you know, and I just, and I don't, you know, I just wish I didn't have this, but there's nothing I can do about it. But I stopped work back in, well, my neurologist told me I needed to stop working back in when I was 54. And I looked at her, I'm too young to stop working. I want to work. I don't want to stop. You know, I feel good. You know, I just lose my balance. And for maybe 4 years, and I went to her and said, you know, Dr. Riola, it's time for me to stop working. She goes, why? She said, I've fallen more. I'm dropping stuff, tools. I'm dropping a lot of stuff at work. And she goes, okay, then I fill out the papers and I stopped working. I've been out of work for maybe 8 years now, but it's still depressing because I can't do things I used to do, you know, around the house, you know, I love to stay active. And that's what's really depressing for me. But the thing with me is I can't find a neurologist that knows anything about CMT. The only one that knows is the one who diagnosed me with it. But with my insurance, she doesn't accept it, so I can't see her anymore. So I'm trying to find a neurologist that knows about CMT, and I go see the neurologist, and they look at me, what's CMT?
Yeah.
You're a neurologist, you should know what it is.
Robert, where do you live? Robert, what part of the country are you in?
I'm in Chicago, Illinois.
Well, we have 3 centers of excellence in Chicago. I'm going to put my email address in the chat so you can reach out to me and I can try to help you find a neurologist in your area.
Okay.
Thank you for sharing. Thank you for sharing, Robert.
A neurologist, and I haven't seen one for a few years. You
Yeah.
know, I went back to her because I changed my insurance, but then I switched back to my old insurance. And I can't see her now, and I haven't seen her for maybe 2 or 3 years.
Well,
And
I'm happy to help.
I haven't seen a neurologist since for maybe 3 years. And I figured my legs are getting weaker. I could feel it. You know, I feel my legs feel weaker, but I just
and I think that's all part of the
my illness of CMT, and that's what's depressing. You know, I say, well, you should know
Laurel, I'm also going to give some resources to you that you can send out to everybody that's been on the webinar.
Perfect. Yeah, I'll send out some follow-up notes. We're gonna start wrapping up because Bethany is in England.
It's depressing because I can't find a neurologist that knows anything about CMT.
Robert, I'm going to help you. Okay.
So we'll get to you, Robert. We need to stop now. But thank you so much for sharing.
But I'll help you out with a neurologist in Chicago. And so I will send some follow-up notes. Bethany, thank you so much. And Elizabeth, for sharing your stories, sharing how you tools to help you manage, you know, a lot of things that came up for you, a lot of challenges over the last couple of years. I appreciate you opening up with the community, and Elizabeth, you too. It was a really meaningful conversation and great to be with you both. And thank you to the entire audience for joining us today. Reach out with any questions if something wasn't addressed. You all should have my email address because it came in your auto reply confirmation, and I shared it in the chat. But thank you so much for today, everyone.
Thank you
for having me.
Bethany.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.